talking about mental health is a great way to get on the pathway towards recovery. From my own personal experience, it was a turning point for me. Just one, admitting that I needed the help, but two, starting that conversation with somebody. But it was extremely difficult. And I think as society, I'd like to think that we could build on that and take it a step further, than rather than expecting somebody who is struggling with a mental health issue to be the one to start the conversation and reach out to us, that we need to become more vigilant in spotting the signs and symptoms and creating the building blocks and the environment to start a conversation with those people, and for them to feel safe to then have that conversation. From my own personal experience, I used all of my energy and strength just to get to the end of each day. Just that fight to kind of pretend that everything's okay. And, my family, my friends, my colleagues, that the last thing I had the strength and power to do was to then put my hand up and tell somebody that I need help. So I do think that it's quite vital that we encourage, or that we start that conversation. But how do we go about doing this? Now, again, from my own personal experience, what really worked for me was, one, to still be included in all the activities in my friendship circles, like going out to watch rugby matches, just get-togethers and stuff like that, and not to be kind of necessarily treated any different, even though people knew that what I've been through, unexpected change in my life, was quite a drastic thing. But, nobody really knew that I was struggling. But just by being included in all of these activities, and then having one of my friends in particular who wasn't really shy about talking about mental health issues, but the language that was used, it was talked about in a constructive manner, rather than being looked upon as a negative, all the stigma and all of that kind of stuff. There was none of that. It was all talked about in a constructive way, which made me feel more comfortable. But also the body language. If somebody is having a conversation about mental health issues, it's really important to be open and engaging, and to really focus on this person and show them that you are focusing on them, that you are listening. And you might not necessarily be able to answer their questions always, or to be the one to solve their problems, but just by listening can be a great help. But also to then say, perhaps, okay, well, maybe take this towards a professional, and then give them that assistance in order to get professional help, which is, in my case, my friend couldn't answer my problems, or couldn't solve my problems even, but could at least point me in a direction, and then kind of be there to assist me in order to make sure that I kind of get on and get the help that I needed. And I think in a workplace, this is extremely vital too. The language that's used by the managers, by the people in charge, if they talk about it in a constructive way, this will filter down to everybody else. But also, if they spend time to really help their employees to learn, the signs and symptoms of somebody who's struggling with mental health issues. And most of the time people will know, like my friends knew, because my demeanor changed, my language changed, the way that I talked about myself, activities. I wasn't really looking forward to things anymore. I was being quite depressive. And obviously they could see that I was very stressed out. So, most of the times people will recognize this in somebody else. And then it's just, if an environment is encouraging, they will feel empowered to start that conversation with somebody in order to get them to help. And I do think this will make a huge difference to staff, to sick leave as well. It's quite often that employers might think that if they open that door towards mental health support for their staff, that they'll have more people off sick. But actually, I think it's the opposite, because if an environment is encouraging enough for somebody to talk about it, they are more likely to get the support they need early on. And if the support is in place and they know where to go, it will help them manage their situation far earlier than waiting until something breaks, which will then result in even more lengthy layoff while they are trying to piece their lives back together. So I do really think that as a society, by being more vigilant and recognizing the signs and symptoms in those around us, and then creating the building blocks and being brave in order to start that conversation with them, I think that will be a better way in order to get people the help that they need, or at least to help them towards the path of recovery.